everybody. Welcome to the Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast, a podcast to help you on your sacred feminine journey towards self-love and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a sacred feminine guide and mentor. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your core wounds, reclaim your feminine power, and liberate your truth so you can be your wild, authentic self. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast. I'm officially back from my break. Did I do a lot of things on my break? Did I do nothing on my break? Honestly, no. It just felt nice to not have to create on another platform but it's funny because now I'm actually doing vlogs. I was inspired by an episode that I heard in my non-expert opinion with Chelsea Rife and Poster Journal about how they're both doing vlogs, so blogs in video format, and that inspired me to do my own 30-day challenge. And so that's what I've been doing right now. You can find it on YouTube in addition to these podcast episodes, but it feels really good to be back. It feels really good to share. It feels really good to connect with you all here. When I did when I did decide to take a break, a lot of people messaged me and they said, I love listening to your podcast, all that stuff. It helps me so much. But it's always nice to get the messages and hear that these episodes are resonant with you in whatever way, shape, or form. I always love connecting to my audience. I love hearing about the little gems that you get that really touch you, that inspire you. Please keep on sharing. And if you love any of the episodes, if you love my podcast, I would sincerely appreciate you writing a review, screenshotting it, putting it on Apple Podcasts or even Spotify. I think Spotify, you can do it now. You can write written reviews and just share it with me. And you can enter and win a 30-minute episode, not 30-minute episode, but a 30-minute coaching session with me on anything related to your spiritual journey. So would love that. But anyways, in this episode, what I am going to share is this topic around what does it mean to really honor who we are, right? And it is about honoring the wild impulses that we have, those bigger desires that we have in order to really dream up this big world and vision for ourselves. And sometimes people may not understand the things that we do, but how do we muster up that courage to honor that part of us? And that is something that we're actually going to deeply talk about and work with in the Sacred Femme Alchemy membership, where every single month we have a theme related to the spiritual journey of connecting back to our hearts, connecting back to our divinity, in order to have self-confidence, self-love, acceptance, and worth. And you get to do it in a beautiful, loving community of women. And we have Kundalini yoga, we have group coaching, we have this private Telegram portal where you can still receive different types of audio trainings, connect with other women. And so it's just a really juicy community. And I absolutely love being there. And this month is all about honoring our wild heart. And when I think of the wild heart, I often think of the wild woman. Again, this is something that I've spoken about before. And, it was me explaining who she is. But when I think of honoring the wild heart and the impulses that we have and leading with boldness, leading with creativity, leading with courage, it comes back to that essence of the wild woman. And that is something that she really has. And it's almost, when you think back in your life of what are some of the things that you did, those decisions where people thought you were pretty crazy or people didn't understand you, but you just had this strong desire, this deep knowing in your heart that even though it was crazy, that you were meant to do this, right? And I often think about that time when I moved to New York, and it was during the recession in 2008. Everyone thought I was crazy. I didn't have a job, but I just knew deep down in my heart that I was meant to be there. I knew I was meant to be there. I knew that was my destiny. I knew that was my path. And it wasn't necessarily, I'm going to show you. It was just more of, I'm doing it for myself because I'm so aligned to my heart when I think about this decision. And I know that my body is sending me signals that I need to be in a certain place. I know that when I left New York, after visiting for vacation, I had this contraction in my stomach of, oh my God, when am I going to be back there? I really need to be back there. And so I think when you think about those strong, big desires and what it means to lead with a bold heart, really listen to the signals and the symptoms that your body is telling you. Really listen to the expansions and the contractions within your body. And there can be contractions of when you get nervous about something, but in your soul that when you get quiet and when you listen to what it is that you really want, that you can actually hear it clearly when it's not inundated by the different types of voices other people are telling you what you think you should do. And I've been really on this path of, how can I connect more deeply to myself? How can I get quiet? How can I have my own practice before talking to anybody else about what it is exactly that's going on? And I find that the more that I start to connect to myself, the more that my intuition starts to grow. And the intuition is just essentially learning how to listen to your heart, learning how to listen to your gut, despite what other people are telling you to do. And it's very difficult because we live in a world where since we're little, we're often taught, you should do this, you should do that. Or, people sharing different educational lessons of, here are the steps to get to here. And so you think that just by following other people that you're going to get the same result. And I think the hardest part is to realize that maybe there is no blueprint. Maybe you're creating the blueprint. And as I'm like sharing this in an episode, I'm really thinking about this for myself. And that's currently where I'm at. And yesterday I had a dream where my subconscious, oftentimes when we are dreaming, it is our subconscious telling us different things. It's just speaking to us through symbolism, right? And that's the language that it speaks to us. And I just remember in my dream wanting to find a blueprint. I remember downloading this playbook and this PDF and saving it. And when I woke, I'm like, that is my perennial thing. Like, I remember working with a meditation teacher when I was living in New York, and I told him, I basically have a blueprint to give to my future children of what they should look out for, what they shouldn't look out for. And that's just like a sense of control, right? A learning to not live in the unknown, a learning to feel like you have control over everything so that you don't have to, I don't know, because I felt like I personally couldn't handle things that I did not know how. I needed to feel like I had a sense of control because feeling out of control was just too much for me. And so I remember having this almost like this, oh my gosh, I feel like I have cat hair all over me. I was snuggling with my cat earlier, but I just remember my meditation teacher telling me, like, no, you need to learn more about how to live in the unknown as opposed to having a blueprint or a playbook that will tell you every single thing to look out for in life. Granted, those are like good things people give you, like the DL and what to look out for, especially if you join a new company or, oh, what is it like to work with this team? What is it like to work with that team? Or like taking notes when you have a new boss of, okay, she wants things like this, she wants like that, it's just like more information that you're getting, but it's like learning how to navigate those unknowns and trusting yourself that you can actually do it. And so for me, that is why my soul chose to be an entrepreneur, because sure, you have different strategies, you have different blueprints of like how to do things, but ultimately everyone is teaching you something that has worked for them, but you don't know, it's not guaranteed to work for you. They're just teaching you a certain way. Just for example, my 3 tools that I constantly talk about are EFT tapping, feminine spirituality, myths and goddesses and feminine archetypes, and Kundalini yoga. Does that mean it's going to work for you? No, but that's the thing that's worked for me. And so I constantly talk about it because I'm such a fangirl of all those 3 things. And I truly believe that when they all work together, it like really helps anchor into helping you harmonize your mind, body, and spirit. But that's for you to decide. I think I'm just done with being in this type of messaging where it's, this is the only way, this is for you. I don't know what's for you. I trust that you can self qualify, that you can figure out, okay, is this for me? And so instead of pushing things towards you, it's more of, oh, okay, you get to decide. I trust that you have your own sovereignty and agency to make your own decisions. I can only share what's worked for me. And if you want a piece of that, and if you want to be a part of it and you want to experience it for yourself or have a different experience, not saying you're going to have the same experience, you get to honor your own type of, you know, situation with it, your experience with it that is unique to you. I think I'm just so done with seeing like a one size fits all type of thing. And I don't know, I guess it's like I'm in my rebellious teenage stage of really questioning certain things of, you know, for example, just thinking about this idea. Like I did a TikTok about this because people are always like, oh, I want to be in my divine feminine, da, 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 and like all of that stuff. I even changed my name. Like I, instead of Sacred Feminine Mentor, it's just women's empowerment. Right. And at first I did that because I thought people did not understand, especially me trying to reach to the masses, that people didn't understand that I was, you know, people had to dig deep, or maybe they weren't on a certain step of the spiritual journey that I thought they were, that they would understand and resonate. And so it's okay, how can I reach more of the masses, as opposed to talking about, you know, these words, these vocabulary words that not many people understand. And when the more I like dive into my spiritual journey right now, I feel like I'm in the recalibration period. And I remember this happened to me when I first got sober. It was me telling my truth, me being self-righteous about, you know, this is the only way of spirituality, this is the way to live. And I was just on my fucking hilltop. And I was just shouting it out and being super judgmental. People weren't like me. If people weren't spiritual, just really scoffing at it. And then I realized, okay, you know, how do I accept everyone? How do I remain tolerant of everyone's viewpoints? Not thinking that I know the way, that I'm God or goddess or something, that I know what's right for you. It's like, I have no idea what's right for you. All I know is that you have your own experience. I have my own experience. I'll share with you what actually works for me. And that's pretty much it. But I no longer need to sell you on some certain idea of what I think is like going to make your life better. You know, I can only share with you the experiences that I have that have made my life better. That's pretty much it. And I feel like there's more of this humility aspect and this layer to it of allowing people to find the truth themselves. And so, as I think about honoring our wild heart, it really leaves us in this period of like collectively, we are all figuring out what it is that our wild heart wants to do. We are honoring the wild impulses that we have collectively, but the journey is so individualistic. How you'll get there is so individualistic. And obviously, it's normal to judge. It's fine to judge. You can project certain things. It's just part of the human experience. It's part of the human process. But catch yourself when you're judging. And so, you know, that goes for you as an outsider perspective. If someone else is doing something that you may not understand, maybe they're breaking up with someone and you're just like, they are making a huge bad decision. I think they're going to regret it. And they're probably going to, you know, come back and regret their decision and all this stuff. Or you think about someone moving somewhere, or, you know, you think about someone leaving a job of security because they're unhappy with their life. They're unhappy. Their soul has been telling them for a while, and it probably shows in the physical symptoms of their body. And, you know, you can judge them from an outsider perspective, but when that happens to be you, like, how do we honor that part of ourselves that actually has that ancient wisdom, that knows that it has everything inside of them to do what it is that they need to do? And it's so easy to be the judge, to say that I know what's best for you. But the truth is, we don't. We honestly don't. And so I really hope and encourage people to to connect it and find themselves and find their truth and find that divine aspect of themselves. And I think the more that I talk about it and the more I go on this path and the more that I learn to quiet my own judge, the more that I learn to quiet the outside voices, and the more that I learned to make things more of my own and see what would I do, right? Because everyone has divine higher thinking. You have all of the things that you need to think for yourself, to make decisions for yourself, to know what's right for you, to know what isn't right for you. And so anytime you get rejected, and I learned this at a retreat that I went to a while ago, where when someone didn't want to partake in something, their response would be, "Thank you for taking care of yourself." Because you trust that person to know their own body. And the whole point of coaching and the whole point of therapy too is allowing you to trust yourself more so you can make decisions. Because at the end of the day, what if you can't call that person? What if you can't call your mentor? What if you can't call your mom? What if you can't call your friends? Who are you going to turn to? Right? In the quiet, who do you have? And that's why it's so important to self source. It's so important to go inwards. It's so important to trust yourself, even if other people think you're crazy, even if other people don't understand you, right? But it's almost embracing that naivety that some of us have to think that we can be quote unquote delulu. And it's even looking at the fool archetype in the tarot, where the fool has this new hope, this beginning, this aspiration, this belief in this new vision. And it's actually the fool in the tarot deck that starts that journey, right? That has that belief, doesn't see where it is yet, doesn't have that jadedness that we often experience when we've had multiple rejections, when we've had, multiple twists and turns. And so, how do you honor that wild impulse of your heart to go after the things that you want, even if no one believes you? And even if you have no idea how it's going to turn out, but the only thing that's leading you is the excitement and the joy in your heart. And so, as I'm saying this, I'm like, wow, how am I embodying that in my own life? I can sit here and talk about it, but what does that look like for me in the day to day? And for me, it's creating those vlogs. Does it make sense? Does it relate to any part of my business? Sure, I'll talk about different parts of my business because, essentially for me, like yoga I'm a yogini. Like it's part of my life. It's how I live. It's how I start my day. It's how I like to be in the day to day. There's no separation of like me sharing these things with you. And essentially what it's turned into is like how I use Kundalini in my day to day. Like essentially it wasn't, but it was just more of me sharing and talking about, okay, this is what I experienced. And here's a tool that I use to help me with it. And so even thinking about, today I was like really feeling stagnant energy. I could feel myself really getting caught up in my ego and the fear-based thoughts and getting really overworked, really stressed out, but the circumstances didn't change. But usually what often happens is like my mind creates circumstances. My mind creates these experiences and these circumstances that haven't even happened yet, and I'm reacting to those circumstances as if they're real. And that's not being in the present. That's just being in like faux reality. And that's just future tripping on something that hasn't even happened yet. And so for me, as I start to do these vlogs and have an outlet, it's about trying to tap in more of that joy. It's about tapping into more of what is true for my heart. And when I find that when I'm centered in my heart, when I'm centered into my truth, when I'm connected to my truth, I can essentially be more present with what's happening. I have more of the courage to do what I need to do. And that's why I always love, love, love creating quiet time for myself, of going inward. I have a daily journal practice, whether it's long form writing in my journal or whether it's doing my 5-minute journal and just, writing what I'm grateful for, things that I think would make today great and an affirmation that I'm working with, but then I also bookend it. So thinking about the things that were the highlights of my day and what did I learn? What did I learn every single day? And I did take notes. Normally, I don't take notes. I just do free writing of my podcast. But I wanted to talk about specific themes and how when it is the fact that when you are connected to your heart, when you are connected to that piece of you that's wild, it has this carelessness to it. And it doesn't come from a place of thinking that you know better, but it's just that deep, resonant knowing. And that's the thing that I love being on this journey of spirituality, of just exploring what it is that works for you, is you have to have that attitude of not caring. You have to have that attitude of really releasing people pleasing. I know it's hard for a lot of us, especially, when I think of women that grew up in immigrant households. A lot of the times you are conditioned to get the approval of your parents. And that can be one of the hardest things when you choose, maybe for example, marriage is a big thing for you and for your family. And, maybe you're choosing not to marry. Maybe you're choosing to live on your own and be single, or you're choosing not to have any partner, or just like anything, right? Anything that goes against the grain of what your parents have taught you. It's just, oh my gosh. And sometimes it's easier said than done. It totally is. It's totally easier said than done. But I think the thing that we have to really come down to is thinking about, was there a time in your life that you felt you made a decision that was truly based on the courageousness of your heart? Where have you been bold in your life to make those changes that really called to you, that really spoke to you? And really learning to embody more of that energy, really embodying more of that essence. And, there will be times when you will be tested. There will be times when you feel like you've lost your way. But the beauty of it is that now you have reference. You have that reference of that experience of where you made that bold decision, and you know that you can do it again. And even though, and this is why I love working with archetypes, is because they're not dormant. They're really not. Or they're not extinct. They're dormant in a sense that they're still alive. We just have to activate them inside of us. And, recently I'm almost done with this program that I've been in called Reclaiming the Mythical Feminine. And it is about learning to work with different archetypes, learning to work with different myths, and how do they show up in our lives. And each one of the feminine archetypes and the myths, they all have had a special place in my heart. Some I've resonated more with and some not. And that's totally fine until I revisit them again and spend more time with them. But none of it is ever to say that they are not inside of you. And so if you are someone who feels as if you're known as the good daughter, the dutiful daughter, the nice daughter, someone who very much listens to what their parents say or do, or who is afraid to go out and venture on your own, what eventually happens is this soul sickness, this soul questioning, right? Of what is it that I'm doing? Maybe it shows up as you feeling sick or having not just Sunday blues, but Sunday through Saturday blues, because you're always constantly waiting for the weekend to be who you are. Or maybe it comes up as this desire to move, but then feeling really bored with your life. And you're not moving because you feel like you have to, I don't know, please your parents in some way, or please everyone else, or not to move away from your friends or family. And that's why it's just, life is too short to live for other people at the end of the day. It truly is. And I think ultimately in my work now, regardless if you're male or female, is just helping you connect to what you think is right for you, because you are smart. You know that you're meant for bigger things. You know you want to do bigger things, and maybe you don't know what those things are yet, but you know that they're bigger than the life that you want to create for yourself right now, or that you have right now. And so how do you get that courage to, first of all, listen to yourself? Second of all, actually take action. And that's why it's so important to get crystal clear on what it is that you're really calling in. How do you do an inventory on your life? How do you look at the different financial aspects, the work that you're doing the day to day, the relationships that you're calling in, relationships with your family that you have, your work environment, your relationship to your body? All of those things are very much important. And how do you experience joy and pleasure and play in your life? What does that look like? Is there anything that you're really desiring to call in more of? Or maybe you just feel really good right now and you don't want to work on any part of your life, and that's totally okay too. But how do you sustain that level of happiness that you have right now? Because every now and again, like, the ego will come and it'll tell you something different. Like, a circumstance will come, a thought will come, and it'll tell you something different. And so how do you maintain that laser focus without getting too caught up in the noise of what is right for you and what is wrong for you, right? And making decisions based purely off of your heart that is resonant and authentic to you. And so really following that. And like I mentioned, regardless of whether you identify as being male or female, because I know I'm a women's empowerment coach, but it's just, I feel that the more people really listen to themselves, really listen to their truth, and really do it from the heart as opposed to their mind, the happier we'll be on this earth, on this planet. And if you can catch those blocks, if you can catch the ego that comes into play, the easier it will be, right? Because you know that the stuff that our mind tells us is pretty much made up, it's pretty much made up. And how can we believe in ourselves despite what we see in the day to day? And we have to be really grounded in our vision. We have to be really solid in our vision and what we're trying to achieve despite what we see. And that's what it means to really honor the wild heart. That's what it means to work with our courage. And when I think about honoring the wild heart, obviously it's opening our heart. It's opening our heart with, different types of practices, opening our heart to be moved, opening our heart to be connected to source, to spirit, being connected to something greater than ourselves, being connected to know that there is purpose for our existence beyond ourselves experiencing life. There is a reason for why we were born into this world, and really looking at that. And so really trusting yourself that even though you might not know what that is, how can you create time? How can you create clarity around it so that when you have this sacred space and time, that you can truly listen to yourself and not anybody else. And so if you want to dive into this even further, we are going to go through it all in the Sacred Femme Alchemy membership for all of August. We will have a Kundalini yoga session, working on our heart, working on the inner fire. I'm also doing a free Kundalini yoga session 2 times in August. So I will share that in the show notes on Eventbrite. And I also have an opportunity to do group coaching as well in the Sacred Femme Alchemy membership. So I'm so, so, so excited to share all of that with you. And I will catch you all on the next episode. All right. Bye, everybody.